the informed investor, thanks to Century 21. Smarter, bolder, faster. Go to century21.com.au.
We're very lucky to have online, as we do each Monday night, the chairman of Century 21 Australasia. So that means he's in charge of New Zealand and Australia. Charles Tarbey, good evening to you.
Good evening, Steve, and glad to hear you enjoyed yourself with your golf trip.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for my invitation, but we'll leave that alone.
I wonder what the price of real estate's like in New Caledonia. I should have checked it out. There's certainly some good spots over there, and it's pretty easy to get to. It's only 2.5 hours by plane. How's the real estate market in New Zealand going?
Actually, it's not a bad marketplace. It went through a reasonably strong correction. Some of the areas like Wellington, particularly with the earthquake, that was interesting because speaking to the guys at the office there, they were actually banned from going into the city or anywhere near their office for some time, and a significant number of transactions were obviously cancelled. And so the market readjusted or had to go through a complete readjustment, and everybody had to settle down. So that's been a very interesting one on its own.
A lot of foreign interest in New Zealand. A lot of people want to go and live there.
Mostly for a couple of reasons. I mean, that's been going on for a while, Steve, because people used to be able to find their way into Australia through New Zealand. And that made a big difference for them. Whereas trying to get into Australia was a lot harder. And so the New Zealand government responded fairly quickly with regards to a lot of the rural property being sold. They responded a lot quicker than the Australian government did. But they still allowed a lot of investors, particularly in the housing market, to come in because they need it. They need that growth. And there's significant interest in New Zealand from Asia and India. And I mean a really significant interest. But they're going to be impacted the same way. Probably not as much as Australia because the Indian market isn't as strong in Australia as it is for New Zealand. But the Asian market certainly there's been a bit of a stop on that with the money coming out of Asia.
The auction clearance numbers were down again, but I just wanted to talk to you about this place because I know this street reasonably well. An auction in Kirribilli at the weekend in Sydney. Flat 2 or Unit 2, number 11, Waruda Street, Kirribilli. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom unit with 1 parking space, built in 1915. And the interior size of the property, floor size, 213 square metres only, sold for $1.875 million.
I suspect that might have something to do with the view too, by the sound of it.
Yeah, it's right on the harbour, right on the water.
Oh, right. Hey, look, it's amazing, though, Steve, when you think about it, there are a lot of people that travel from overseas, that move here from overseas with their work, etc. And something like that is really quite a spectacular investment for them. And I heard of another one down in your neck of the woods in St Kilda, and it was a 46 square bed sitter, if you like, and that sold for 360-odd thousand on the weekend, 100+ thousand over reserve.
That's incredible. Well, this place in Waruda Street has got spot-on view straight at the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House.
Beautiful, absolutely stunning. And I guess if somebody has the money to do it, they're going to do it. I might invest my money somewhere else too, as you might. But I think if somebody's got a lifestyle that they want, and that's going to be their place to hide away or live, I think it's fantastic value. You just can't get anything on Sydney Harbour that sits in a position like that for a low price. It's just impossible. Just impossible.
What were the clearance rates like on the weekend?
Yeah, they were pretty interesting. 56.9%, a little bit higher than this time last week, but this time last year they were 68.9%. So there is a significant correction, and I know with Melbourne market especially, it hit 58.7%. And it was, again, a lot lower than this time last year, same as Sydney. The favourite place, your favourite place, I think you were born and bred in Adelaide, is that right?
Yep, yeah, I was.
72.7% clearance rate for Adelaide. And Adelaide has every week outdone its clearance rate from this time last year. It's the only capital city that's performing better than this time last year consistently. The other one that comes close is Canberra, and Perth gets there as well.
What do you put the Adelaide numbers down to?
I just think it's a fantastic marketplace. I think the prices are good. The supply has been strong for a very, very long time. The properties in Adelaide are some really beautiful locations in Adelaide. And I just think they've had that constant supply, general supply. Their state government was well ahead of the game. When everybody else was complaining about lack of stock, they weren't. And I know we've spoken about this before. They weren't opening small subdivisions. They were opening suburbs, and I think that's where the rest of the country missed. And the only thing that with Adelaide, of course, is employment, industry employment, and if that can be overcome and people can get that security, it's a stunning place to live. The real estate's beautiful. The environment's beautiful.
Great place to bring up kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of great things for Adelaide ahead, and I think once they get their industry a lot more stable, that to me is certainly a place to invest.
Would you sell by auction or private treaty?
Depends where I am. If I've got a unique property, there's no way I would do anything else other than auction. If it was a deceased estate or a trustee issue, you've got to go to auction because there are too many family members who would complain, and it needs to be sold at arm's length. But when it comes to residential areas where there are 8 to 10 properties similar in the same suburb, you're not going to, as a buyer, risk spending all that money to set yourself up to buy at an auction and miss out. You just go down the road and make an offer. So I think that auction has had its day in some respect in certain areas because that fear of missing out is slowly dissipating.
So is it cost you a lot more to auction than it does to just sell it outright?
It certainly does, because people have got to invest a reasonable amount up front. But what I like about that is that the agent it's a commitment. It's a serious commitment. If you've got an agent that's asking you for an amount of money up front to market their property, then they know that they're going to be scrutinised. And I think you do get an incredibly stronger focus when you go to auction because of that one thing. As I said, if I had a property that was reasonably unique in an area, I wouldn't sell it any other way at auction.
The Brisbane apartment market, we've warned people before about this oversupply. It's now starting to come home to roost.
Our favourite place, and I think you and I have been talking about this for a very long time.
Yep.
I'm surprised it's taken so long for the press to pick up on this, and now you're finding developers, ones that can afford to, will keep their properties. They'll rent them out. They'll wait for the market to change, but there are not all developers are in that position. And so that means quite clearly that properties are going to come on that people can't settle on. They will have to be sold. And if they're not sold by the developer, your bank's going to sell them. And this is where I see that change occurring. I had a bet with somebody about apartments in Brisbane dropping to mid-threes. Now, this sounds pretty strange because they were selling for mid-fives. But I really think that in certain areas, and I mean the Brisbane market, the apartment market, is fantastic in some areas, and prices won't change.
Well, you've been the best one warning us about that, Charles, and you've been doing it for a long time. I'll talk to you next week, mate. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Steve.
Charles Tarbey, Chairman of Century 21.
A smarter SMSF solution is Bell Direct. Invest and view your trading and super admin all in one place. Plus, Bell Direct takes care of the paperwork, compliance, tax and auditing. They're different with online data reporting, a mobile app and concierge service so you can talk to a SMSF expert every step of the way. Set up your SMSF with Bell Direct by June 30 and save $1,455 in your first year. Visit Bell Direct.
Before investing, consider your financial situation, needs and investment objectives. Terms and conditions at belldirect.com.au, AFSL 314341. AFSL 314.